Hi, this is chess expert Dane Zagar coming to you from TwinPortsChess.com. Today we're going to be looking at the game of the month for March 2015. I'd like to thank Greg Novak for submitting this game, and I encourage anybody viewing this video to submit your games at the bottom of this webpage. I should mention that it's not my intention to go over this game and find the quote-unquote best possible moves. Instead, I'm going to focus on themes or ideas that I feel we can learn from, or maybe even use in our own games. This game was played in 1974, around the time of the Fischer boom. Bobby Fischer had just won the World Championship in 1972, and America was experiencing a golden age in chess. I like to think we're experiencing a chess renaissance now, but I'll spare you guys that rant. Okay, let's get to the action. Greg was black. Interesting, White's playing the Cully. It's not the most aggressive opening, but it provides good squares for his knights and light squared bishop. Let's see how this game develops. Let's stop and take a closer look at this position. It appears that all the pieces guarding black's kingside were traded off. In the opening and middle game, it's super important to make sure you have at least one piece guarding your castled king. Having an unguarded king doesn't always spell death, but it often leaves the door open for your opponent to find some type of nice tactic or combination. Let's see what white does. So white sacrifices his bishop and jumps his knight into black's kingside. This idea is called the Greek gift sacrifice, gaining its name from the famous horse of the Trojan War. In a similar fashion as the Greeks offered the Trojan horse as a gift to Troy, white gives up his bishop so that he can jump his knight into enemy territory. Fortunately for black, this is not the ideal position for the sacrifice. It would be nice if white had a pawn on e5. We'll return to the Greek gift sacrifice in a bit, but let's see how this game ends. White definitely got his piece worth of material back. The nice thing about this sacrifice is that even if you don't get checkmate or get all your material back, it often unrattles your opponent psychologically. Let's continue. Whoops, not all checks are good ones, guys. After black plays b6, blocking, then white can't defend both his rook on a1 and checkmate on h2. Let's see the last few moves. And white resigns rather than giving up his queen and getting checkmate the move later. Wow, I applaud Greg for hanging in there. Nice comeback. Now let's take a closer look at the theme of this game, the Greek gift sacrifice. Ideally, for the Greek gift sacrifice to work, the attacker should have good control of the center, and the enemy kingside should be undefended. Here's a good position for the Greek gift sacrifice. Black has a knight guarding his kingside, but we can remove it easily by playing e5. Now we can see the three main attackers in the Greek gift sacrifice: the bishop, queen, and knight. The pawn on e5 also plays an important role. Usually the Greek gift sacrifice works better if you have a pawn on e5. So let's look at all the responses to the Greek gift sacrifice. We always start the sacrifice by giving up our light squared bishop on the king side. First off, black can decide not to take the bishop and play king h8. But if he does that, then after we trade the knight and we move our bishop back, say to c2, then black is down a pawn without anything to show for it. So the way we refute sacrifices is to accept them. So fine, I'll take your bishop. But then what happens then? Knight check. So black has to decide whether he wants to go back or forward. Let's look at what happens if he goes back first. Black has two squares in back of him, h8 and g8. If he moves his king to h8, white gets checkmate right away. So let's go back to the position of knight g4 check. Now we'll try g8. The only move black has is to move his rook over to e8. Now it looks like all we have to do is play queen h7 check when the king moves, then queen h8 check, king can move again, and we'll take the g-pawn. But now black can sometimes defend by playing rook to f8. After rook e8, we should not play queen h7 check. Instead, we should take the f7 pawn, and then when the king comes back, now we can play check. And we get checkmate because black doesn't have the f7 pawn to block him. See how the e5 pawn prevents black from escaping? I told you that e5 pawn would be important. So on knight g4 check, what if black goes forward? Well, if black moves to h6, then we can play knight to e6 check and win his queen. So that line's no good. The only square we haven't looked at yet is g6. So let's see what happens when black goes there. Now white can play queen to g4, threatening a nasty discover check with the knight. Black can try harassing white's queen for a couple moves, maybe by playing f5, but then we just go queen g3, and black could try playing f4, but then after bishop takes f4, the only way for black to avoid knight e6 discover check is by playing either king h5 or king f5. Let's look at king h5. After king h5, queen h3 check, king has to go back to g6, and then just queen h7 checkmate. And if king f5, then queen h3 check, the king can't go back to g6 because of the same checkmate. So the king has to take the bishop. And after that, then knight takes e6, checkmate. Pretty nice smother mate. Now that we've seen how to execute the Greek gift sacrifice, let's see how to prevent it from happening to us. One of the easiest ways to stop the Greek gift sacrifice is to keep a bishop on e7. Let's see what happens when white tries the Greek gift sacrifice. So first we want to play e5. Black moves his knight. We sacrifice our bishop. King takes. And now when we come in for this knight check, black just takes our knight. And that's pretty much the end of the story. Last but not least, here's my favorite way of preventing the Greek gift sacrifice. Keep a pin on the knight and queen with your bishop. Then when white tries to go for the sacrifice, so e5, move the knight, bishop check, king takes. It looks like now, after check, that if black moves his king back, white's just going to take this bishop and be up a pawn, and then have checkmate threats. But instead, we just take his knight. And the nice thing about this is now we can't play queen takes bishop, because the queen would just take our queen back. So then white has to take black's queen. And then after that, we take white's queen, and they take black's bishop. And now let's count the pieces. White has only 2 minor pieces, and black has 1, 2, 3. So that was kind of a bad trade. Alright guys, remember to watch out for the Greek gift sacrifice in your own games. Thanks for watching. I'm chess expert Dane Zagar, and I'll see you guys next time.